UPEI men's hockey has a long tradition of producing high-quality defensemen over the years. Players like Wolf McDonald, Darwin McCutcheon, Ruane McPhee, or more recently with guys like Reggie Tricito, Matt Maione, and Owen Hedrick. Today's guest can be counted among the top tier of defensemen all time at UPEI. He was known to be very hard to play against, but also possessed an offensive flair. He's originally from the Sioux. He now winters in Arizona, but has made the Maritimes his home for the past 40 years. For me, he's the OG of O-Dogs. Please welcome Brian Ostroski. There's many ways that a fella could spend his birthday, and I think one of the most enjoyable ways would be reconnecting with my old buddy, Brian Ostroski. Oh, great to see you.
Oh, great to be here, bud.
Not quite as old as you, buddy, but I'm getting close.
Well, at a certain point, it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
You're right. It's irrelevant. Anyway, great to have you on. Just to go back, I want to kind of go back to your kind of, your younger days, where you came from. And people may not know, but you played with a junior organization that I think had one of the coolest names going, the Hamilton Fin Cups. They were a dominant franchise back in the 70s, with the Toronto Marlboros, Montreal Junior Canadiens, organizations like that. And I always wondered, where does the name Fin Cup come from? Like, why were you called Fin Cups? And what was it like, I guess, playing? Because you guys had a pretty good organization at that time.
Yeah, we had a really good team. Actually, at the point, at that time, we were the number one team in the country. I was fortunate enough to make that team because they had just won the Memorial Cup, and they had about 14, 15 guys returning. So there was only like 5, 6 spots open, right. And I was fortunate enough to make it. But we had some really good team players, McCourt, Huber, Rick Sealing, Al Secord was there, Rick Walmsley, whatever. But the owners were super guys. We used to call them the Italian mob from Hamilton. It was there were brother-in-laws, and their last names were Finocchio and Capito. Oh, okay. Two good Italian names, and they put the two together to call them the Hamilton Wentworth Fin Cups.
Oh, okay.
And that's after, it used to be the Red Wings forever, but they took over the team, and that's how that came about.
Right. So you back at that time, the previous Memorial Cup winner used to represent Canada, didn't they?
No, it didn't. It used to
competition. Did you get to do that?
Yeah, I did get to do that. But what they used to do is they used to go a Quebec team, Ontario team, Western team. And the start of the year, whoever had the best record after the first, I can't remember, it was 10 or 20 games, got to go to the World Juniors. Oh. And that year we had the returning, I'll call it Memorial Cup team coming. Right. Of course, we had a great start that year. So we got to represent Canada at the World Juniors, and it was in Czechoslovakia during the time of the Iron Curtain.
Right. Yeah.
And as an 18-year-old at that time, probably the best experience of my life to realize how lucky we were to be living in our country.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. I remember watching you. I don't know if I ever told you this before, but in 1978, we went up with the old DB&J Eagles, and we played against the Guelph Platers for the Eastern Canadian Junior Championship. And we went one night to watch a playoff game that you guys were in. It was against Peterborough, I think. Was it like a mountain arena or something? Is that where you guys played?
The old mountain arena, yes.
The old mountain arena. And what I remember about that game was there was this guy on defense, had a funny name. And it was Ostroski. And he had a big burly beard, and he had white blades. White tuck blades. And I said, man, that's cool, because no one else had white tuck blades. You were the only one, I think, on the ice that had white tuck blades playing that night.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Maybe a month before the playoffs started, I had to go to the Bauer factory. I think it was in Guelph, actually, and get new skates. And they were coming out with these new white ones. And I said, I don't care if it's the latest, I'll take it. It doesn't matter. So, but I do remember it was that the Charlottetown Eagles were in Guelph for that and came down. I didn't realize that till after I went to UPEI.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
that
I
Peterborough team,
know all about you before you came to PEI. Became where you were.
yeah.
So on that note, though, how did you get here? What led you to UPEI?
Well, I got to tell you, it's a funny story because when you guys came to Hamilton, I don't know, but there was a guy by the name of John Neville, and I think he was traveling with the Eagles team. And as you know, I used to be the assistant pro back in the Sioux, and I'd get a phone call every 2-3 times a month, and in the pro shop, and he'd be talking to me about, oh, you got to come to school, you got to do this. And I said, look, John, I said, I barely got grade 12. And in those days, you needed 13 to go to university.
Right.
I said, I've been out of school 3 years, and I don't think I can do it. And he kept calling me. And when I hung up, I used to golf and train with guys that were older than me that were in the minors of the NHL. These were hometown heroes, and they're the ones that said, go to school. Because they'd be married, they'd have kids, and be August. They wouldn't have a contract. They didn't know where they were going. And if they got a contract, they were only making like $30,000 or something.
Right.
So they convinced me to go, and I said, okay, well, I'll try it. So I packed the old MGB, drove to Charlottetown by myself.
I remember that car.
Yeah, and the guy's name was John Neville. And when I got to campus, I couldn't believe it. It turned out he was a fourth-year student at UPEI, and he was their manager, recruiting, whatever. Yeah. And John and I call him Stats now because he's a hockey freak. Yeah. We became good friends, and actually I lived with him in Halifax a bit and was in his wedding party. And we still touch base every now and again. But Stats, yeah, it was guy by the name of John Neville.
Well, he could talk, man. And he could be pretty convincing if you wanted to be convinced to come. So you wouldn't have come down. You didn't see UPEI. You didn't come down for a recruiting trip. You didn't see the rink that you were going to be freezing your toes off for 4 years and you didn't see any of that stuff.
None of it at all. And then when I was getting ready to go, a guy by the name of Tony Kumo play for the Greyhounds. Right. He was going to St. FX. And he tried to convince me at the last minute to say, forget Charlottetown, come to St. FX.
Okay.
And obviously that didn't happen.
So Neville went out.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Neville went out. Well, I'm glad John did what he did because it was great having you here. So when you got here, you were a Panther for 4 years.
Right.
You also had some pretty cool experiences playing on other teams that were, when I think about it, like when in 79, your first year here, you were part of that Canada Winter Games team that did pretty well, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, that was funny because they were allowed to sign university players. I'm trying to think, Shane Carr, Shane Turner, Harold Hay, Moose, Dave Cameron would have been going, but he got injured, didn't make the trip. So what I remember about that team is we had to play UDM Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock at the old Charlottetown Forum. Yeah. And when the game was over, we had to put all our wet gear in the bag, and they took us to the airport, took a Cessna plane to Halifax, went from there, ended up in Winnipeg, and then we had to take a van from Winnipeg Airport to Brandon University. We got in like 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had an 8 a.m. game against Ontario.
That same day.
That same 4 hours. We didn't even, probably got 2-3 hours sleep, and we had to play.
Yeah, but welcome to the Canada Games.
Yeah, it was fun, and we did really well. We ended up playing for the bronze medal. Unfortunately, we lost to Saskatchewan, I think it was. Yeah. But it was a good time, and we stayed at the campus of Brandon. And at that age, we were legal. And, of course, Shane Carr and I and a few of the boys, we'd always go out and have a pop somewhere, and we'd be coming back about 12-1. Yeah. And you were staying on campus, and the security was not happy about, because there was kids 13, 14 doing gymnastics or whatever, and they had to call the chef de mission or whatever it is. I used to call him Clousteau. Anyway, he convinced them to let us stay because they wanted to send us home after the second or third night doing it.
But that same year, you also had a good opportunity. You played with the Metros. Talking about being picked up, because back at that time, you could play and get picked up by junior teams if you were still of age. And you went on that famous team that almost won the Centennial Cup, but 2 or 3 minutes away from winning it. That was quite an experience too, right?
Yeah, we had a really good time. That was a lot of fun. We went to Prince Albert. Yeah. We lost in overtime, I think, to Prince Albert at that time for the championship. But, we had great players, and it was a lot of fun. Playing in that old Sherwood Parkdale rink. We had to play with the Fredericton Canadians. They didn't want any part of us. And then we had to play the Halifax Lions to go to the championship. And it went down to the last game at the Halifax Forum. And I always remember I used to love warming up at center ice, going back and forth. And a little short fella on the other team by the name of Tim Cranston took a slap shot at me and hit me in the rear end.
I played with Tim Cranston in Sherbrooke.
Did you?
I did.
So I went across the ice and went after him. And turned out we had a brawl in warm-up. There's no refs in the rink. And, of course, we had Stevie Gallant and Puff and Dougie, and we had a bunch of guys. And when I went to Halifax later years, I met a lot of these guys, and they said that was the end of the game, that warm-up. So we won that, and we were able to go to Prince Albert. Angie Carroll was the coach. He was a great coach.
Yeah.
But what I remember when we signed, Charlottetown Eagles won like 8 or 9 years in a row, and Sherwood Parkdale was trying to make a run of it. And Everett Stewart, our UPEI assistant coach, after practice, he said, Moose, Brian, I want to talk to you and sign with the Eagles. So we go in the dressing room beside our room, and we'd sign the card, and he'd give us $100. And $100 back then, wow, that was catch me out. Yeah. So we signed. Everett goes into the coach's room with Jack Hines. About 5-10 minutes later, Schnoz Frizzle comes in and says to our trainer, I want to talk to Moose and Brian. So we go into the room and talk to him. He says, look, we got a real good chance this year to win the island. We'd really love to sign you guys and play. And I'm going to give each of you $300.
Wow.
I looked at Moose. I said, oh, Schnoz, we just signed with Everett and the Eagles. And I said, well, give me a minute. So I go in the coach's room and I said, Everett, I think I made a mistake, Moose and I, on signing those cards. Can I just see them? So he handed them to us, and what did I do? Ripped them up. He was not happy. Not happy. So we went back and signed with the Metros, and the rest is history. It was a lot of fun.
Oh wow, that's great stuff. But speaking about Angie, you won a national championship with him a couple of years later with the Islanders, right?
That was a stack.
Senior.
The Charlottetown Islanders senior team. That was a stacked team. Obviously, Wolford was there, and we went to Winnipeg and played there. And the one thing I remember about that is had a goalie there by the name of Yves Belanger.
Yeah. And
Schultz, when the other team gets across center ice, they dump the puck in, and us defensemen would try to skate there as fast as we can without getting smoked. And Yves says I always remember him saying to me, he says, why are you coming? He says, I'll get the puck. You go to one hash mark. Wolford goes the other one. And I'm going to get the puck, and I'll pass it to either one of you that are open, or I might even pass it to the centerman breaking up center ice.
Wow.
And I said, I could never believe it, the way he handled it. But he did some time with the Bruins, I believe.
He did, yeah.
And, yeah.
I think Devil got him here, right? Jamie Kennedy got him here, right?
Jamie got him there. Was Rory not on that team as well?
Rory was on that team.
Rory was on that trip, yeah.
Dad actually went out to that trip, and Dad had watched a lot of hockey over the years. And he said it might have been one of the most violent series that he ever watched. He said, seeing that team going into that Winnipeg rink, playing against that team, I think they were big, they were mean, and you guys went in and took the title away.
Yeah, well, we knew it was going to be mean because when we got to the hotel the first night, we were in the playing pool, having a couple drinks to relax before the game the next night, and didn't go up in there. We got into it with the locals because they didn't like the way we were playing pool or whatever. Doesn't matter. And Mike said, okay, we're out of here. We moved hotels, and we went downtown to a real nice hotel instead of this dive in, I think it was North Winnipeg.
The things you do, buddy, the things you do. And you actually won another Hardy Cup when you went over to Newfoundland, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, geez. Yeah, that was the year I played for the Islanders, but I lived in Moncton. And we went over there for the Allen Cup. The Mike McKinnon, them, the owners, whatever, decided, instead of Hardy Cup, let's try Allen Cup. So we had picked up, Al McAdam, Bobby McMillan, even Hilliard Graves played, Mike Reddy, Wilford, all the guys. So we go over there and we're playing the Caps, and we lost the best of 5, I think 3 straight or whatever.
3-1. We won. I think we won game. We won game 4.
We won 1 game. So anyway, came home, we go to work, and then the next day they say, Brian, we'd like you to go to St. John's, Newfoundland and work and just spend a week or 2 there. I said, I'm in, I'm going. So I went over there and played with the Caps. Bill Riley was my roommate for about 3-4 years over there.
Right.
And we lost to Portabass Mariners in the final of the Herder Cup. They were paying guys $1,200 a week, cash and whatever. And actually, Robert's brothers ended up in the NHL.
Right.
As tough guys. Billy McDougall played in Tampa. But we lost in the final, and they were allowed to pick up 4 players. So they picked up Riles, myself, Gus Greco, and Oki, a goalie from Corner Brook. And we won the Hardy Cup there. This poor team from Saskatchewan went to Portabass. They couldn't wait to go home.
You imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine. That was at the time when senior hockey was like at its peak.
Well, it was like almost a semi-pro league back then. I was getting paid every game and to play. And anyway, the rink would be packed because the fans, especially in St. John's, the old Memorial Stadium, when Portabass came to town, they knew there was going to be fights. And that's what they wanted to see. We had Stan Henniger was on the team.
Stan Henniger. Yeah. There's a good name.
Yeah.
There's a good name. So when we were here, one of the places I asked Thane about this too, and interviewed Thane last year. You lived at the ranch, and the ranch was kind of a little bit of a living legend when we were here together in the days. You, Bull McCarron, Thane, and half
Wilford.
Wilford, that's right. What do you think when I say the ranch? What do you think of?
Oh, a lot of good memories there. A lot of Sunday afternoons after a hockey game and having a few beers and playing caps and backgammon with the boys. And it was kind of the dewdrop in for everybody after GJ's, whatever. And there was a lot of fun. I remember, too, a lot of times you get up in the morning and you get ready to go to school in the fall and you open the door and there'd be 2 Canada geese hanging with skate laces there. The boys would drop off for supper, or in the springtime you'd go out and there'd be fish hanging there for you. But no, it was a lot of fun. The ranch. I always said if I ever made millions, I would buy the ranch, and once a year we'd have a reunion, the month of August of every year. That could be a reunion. Obviously that never happened, but a lot of good memories there.
Nice. One of the things I remember about the rancho was when your mom, of course, you mentioned being Polish, she'd always send you down the care packages of pierogi and borscht. And man, was it good. And you'd always take us over and you'd say, boys, come on over and have some of Mom's cooking. Yeah. And you'd get the bacon fried out and have the borscht and the pierogies. That's one of the best memories I have of the ranch too.
Yeah, the ranch mum there, yeah. That food didn't last long at that place, let me tell you.
So anyway, you finished here, you go on to work. You had a 30-some year career in the bank, probably took you around to various spots. You were in Halifax for a bit, you're in Pitco, you're in the Rock, Moncton.
Yeah, 34 years. 34 years traveling around, and was asked several times to go to like Winnipeg or Regina or out west, and no. Life's too short. You got to enjoy it. And I always had fun no matter where I was posted. I always said, you work hard, you play hard. This old body has to sleep 8 hours a night. You had to work 8 to 10 hours a day. So there's only so many hours a day to play. And we always did, I always loved golf, hockey. And that's a great place to network and meet people and, just do business. It was a lot of fun.
And was that kind of your strategy? Like, was that kind of, because wherever you went, you always had a social niche that you hooked with. Like, you think of Jimmy and Cy and Jed in Newfoundland and other groups that you went wherever you. Was that part of strategy or was that just O being O?
No, it's just me being me. Like I said, work hard, play hard. So you go to the golf course, a new city, Ballyhally. Didn't know anybody. Went there myself, met a bunch of guys, and over time, you hang around with your crowd and you get to meet them. And I got to be really good friends. And still to this day, I still talk to Boxer and Cy because Jared went to Memorial University in St. John's. So whenever I'd fly over, Dorothy and I would stay with Cy.
Okay.
But, when you golf, as you know, Schultz, and play hockey, you meet all kinds of fellas, guys, and you support your community. You're a counselor, you're giving back community. I was always a big believer of giving back to hockey in our community. I always used to say, the bank makes $12 billion a year. I don't imagine a few thousand here or there to organizations going to hurt them.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Speaking of Jared, so is he in the Rock now? Is he on the Rock? Is he still living there, or he graduated? Or what's he doing?
He did his 5-year work term there, which was great. He took his business accounting, and he's now working with Revenue Canada. He audits companies' books. I'm sure he's not the most popular when he goes into their office, but he enjoys it. They're good to him. He's good to them, and travel around, and he's doing well. So that's the main thing. He got his education, which to me is always key.
Does he get out to Arizona to see you at all, or is he able to make it out and spend some time with you and Dorothy out there?
Yeah, he was just here for Christmas for 10 days. So he came down.
Cool.
We had a good visit and took him around. We went to a college football game.
Nice.
And, we really follow college football. We're big Michigan Wolverine fans. So
you have to be pretty happy with your Lions the other day too.
And my Lions, you can't see it, but I got the flag and all the signs out front. Because here there's a lot of cheeseheads, and they're all Packer fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're creating quite a story.
Yeah. They've got coaching always. Coaching can make a difference. And Campbell, he's got them working hard. I always say a good hockey coach, if you could give your team that little pill before they went out for every game to motivate them to give 110% every shift, you'd be in the NHL. You're
right. Well, good luck. I'm actually on the Lions bandwagon. I haven't been following football a whole lot, but I love their story. I think it's a great.
Yeah, a lot of misery over a lot of years, just like my Leafs, bud. So.
And that 97-year-old guy, that's a 97-year-old man. He's been a fan for like 57 years or something like that. And I watched one of his stories. Oh man, it's hugs at your heartstrings. Enjoy that ride. Speaking of heartstrings, buddy, we got, of course, you and I lost a good friend last year in Reader. Dave Reed passed away last February, the 23rd. We got Alumni Weekend coming up this weekend, and we're going to be doing a little tribute to Reader during the first period. If you think about Reader, what comes to mind? What do you think about a guy like Davey?
Yeah, it's such a sad thing. And, whenever we're around, I always say, we're dead a long time. So live every day the fullest. And when I think of Reader, as you know, even where I lived everywhere in the Maritimes or Atlantic Canada, I never worked in Charlottetown, but I always used to get together with Reader and your brother Rory at least once a year. And you know what? It was always fun. It was always around golf, but he was such a lovable guy. He was always happy no matter what the situation was. He always put a positive twist. We all have our ups and downs in our career or our lives, and he would always smile and turn around and think of the positives. Yeah. He'd come to wherever he'd come over to Pictou, and I get him in the TD Sobeys golf tournament and introduce him to all the guys, him and Rory. And every one of those guys, when the boys left home, said, man, that Reader, what a great guy. As well as Rory. What a great guy. And, they used to always stay at our house. And Dorothy would always say when they'd leave, you know what, they're always welcome back at our house. And I said, yeah, even if we kept you and Jared up to the wee hours of the morning, she said, absolutely. So, that smile, I always remember the smile. I don't know if you remember when I brought all the newfies over and we went to Creed's Country Kitchen.
Yeah.
You had the Screaming Trees there playing for the band for us. And the boys had the pastel golf shirts on, and we all stood out in Creed's Country Kitchen out in Sturgeon. And the boys there really didn't like the fact that the boys were dancing with all their girlfriends or friends, whatever. And I'll always remember this humongous farmer. He grabbed Reader. He had him pinned against the wall. He cocked his arm. And, of course, Reader's got the smile. And the best line ever was, "You'll never eat corn in the cob again." And we had to jump this guy to save Reader's chiclets. But, he was always smiling and just a great guy to be around. And he surely is missed. Even, you only see him once a year, but it was like you never left, or you just saw him last week. Nothing changed.
Yeah. Larger than life.
Yeah. Larger than life is right.
And there's not many Readers in the world. Right?
No, there's not.
You don't run into a David Reed very often.
No, not at all.
Someone that, and I'm glad you highlighted the positivity, because that's what he was all about. He was all about people, all about loving people, being friendly with people, finding the good in people, celebrating. And one of the things I always loved about Reader too is that he celebrated success. He was so happy to see people being successful. I think that's another thing that I always admired about him too.
And Schultze, just the fact that you guys, the alumni, are having a little tribute to him on Alumni Weekend, that speaks to itself, right? Yeah. That just sums it up, that it's still there.
I don't know if you know or not, but we do a little we do a shootout in the second period, and we have a big picture of Reader in the nets. And it's called the Reader Shootout. And you may not be aware. Anyway, I'll send you a picture of it, and I'll show you what we do. And we play a song called Mr. Brightside during the course of the shooting it. And who embodies being bright and optimistic than David Reed, right? If there ever was a guy who was saw the bright side in everything, it's Reader. So we've been able to manage that tradition. So every time I'm broadcasting the game, I get to see a big, beautiful smile on teeth. And thank God Digger White didn't ding him that night at Creed's Country Kitchen, because he would have lost that teeth and we would have been deprived of that beautiful smile over the last number of years.
Reader, he called me last year after I left Whistler, I had to go to Toronto to see my parents for a bit. And he called me, and man, it was so emotional. And Dorothy said, "Brian, you know what? I think this is the first time I've ever seen you cry."
Wow.
When I hung up that phone, it was tough, real tough.
Yeah.
But remember the good times. That's the way I look at it now.
100%. And that's the thing. I think that we all were, don't be sad it's over. Be glad it happened. And a lot happened with Reader. And he's special, and we were fortunate to have him for so long. So
yeah, for sure.
Just to close off, anything you wanted to say to, I know you're not coming to Alumni Weekend this weekend. You've been here before, but it's been a few years now that you're wintering in Arizona. Anything you wanted to say to, I don't know, the group or anyone in particular who might be there?
Yeah, well, I wish I was there, but it's pretty hard to give up the sun and heat after decades of snow and shoveling and whatever, but wish could be there for sure. It goes without saying, I know all the boys are going to have a great time. The stories will be longer, maybe a few more fibs, but when I think of Wilford, and I don't know if Moose is going to be there, and Sav and Dougie and Simbad and Semenko and all the boys, I know they're going to have a great time. I wish I was there. Enjoy the weekend. It's important, because you know what? Before you know it, some of us will be joining Reader. Yep. And live every day to the fullest, have fun. And on that note, I'll just say cheers. Have a great weekend.
Cheers to you, buddy. You're a beauty. Thanks for coming on. We talked beforehand. We could probably stay on a lot longer. And thanks for sharing your memories. Always great. You're a great Panther, great guy, great friend. And like you say, enjoy every day and enjoy your time out in Arizona.
And Schultze, Thomas, great job. I really enjoy looking at those when you send them to me. So keep it going. And if there's anything I can do, by all means, don't hesitate to ask.
All right, buddy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Go Lions.
Go Lions. Yeah.